Assalamu alaikum and good greetings. So we will continue on from our previous videos where I have touched upon the first thing that you should do, which is find yourself first. What is your core values? What is your vision, mission, what you really want to achieve in life? And then going into the discussion with the elders to get the insights, the hikmah, the wisdom for all the technical things. Now you should already have a certain target. When is the ideal time that I want to get married, and what type of candidate is suitable for marriage with me? Hence, you will have a timeline and you will have some sort of urgency. Oh, if I want to ideally get married at 23, so even at 20 I have to already prepare myself, and then at 21 start the process of finding the candidate, etc. With that timeline, with that objective, with all of that in mind, it should help you for the next phase. And now we are approaching the step of finding the candidate, but before that, this is about setting up the minimum criteria of the candidate, setting up the minimum criteria for the candidate. So the important thing is you know what is the criteria, what is your minimum criteria that you can consider, and why each of the criteria is there in the first place. That relates to what we have discussed before. So based on that, you know which of the minimum criteria is something that you can compromise and what cannot be compromised, what is there as a hard minimum criteria, because otherwise anything below, then it's really not strategic for what you aim to achieve in life, for example, right? So what is the minimum criteria that is non-negotiable, and what is, perhaps some circumstances, etc. you can discuss. Now, a bit of an anecdote or story of mine. Back then when I was, I think, in secondary school or early in my university life, based on my parents, what I see them doing, etc., I have this ambition that even at that age, I want to still committed to usrah. Right? So, of course, this is something that if you are totally not familiar with what that is, maybe that another video need to be there for this. But it's something that some Muslim do to achieve certain things, right? So when I see, I don't understand what really they are doing, but I have this ambition that I want to be in this culture at that age, right? So when I have that as my ambition, so naturally when I think about marriage, I think about criteria which will facilitate to that, right? So someone who have the same ambition, that also want to have this as part of her life as well at that age. Now as I progress in my university life, get more exposed to the reality, the bigger picture of these Islamic works, etc., then I have a bigger ambition, right? Not just committed in that kind of program, but I can also conduct that, I can also do certain bigger things, etc., right? So as my ambition got bigger, the minimum criteria for a candidate that is suitable for my life partner also got increased correspondingly. This is naturally, it's not like I write it somewhere, but if someone asks at that particular time, what is your ideal candidate, or what is the type of criteria of candidate that you will consider, it shifted over time with the shifting of my personal ambition. So this goes back to the point that I have made earlier in the previous video about searching yourself as early as possible, right? Because you want to discover what you really want in life, etc., before you get to the point of finding the candidate for your wife or husband. Now if anyone asks me, when should this happen, when should this take place, I would say as early as possible. The earliest that you can do this at the beginning of your university life, or for some perhaps even at the end of the high school life. Now why do I think that this is so important? It is because when you have a minimum criteria that you really believe in, because it tied to your personal values and mission, it will filter out those who do not meet the criteria from your heart being attached to those person. So why is this so important? It is because once your heart is attached to someone, for example, you fall in love with someone, right? Regardless of your logic, regardless of your value, whatever, once your heart is already attached to that, it is more difficult to manage that than if you do not have that in the first place. So that's where I think it is very helpful if you have the minimum criteria that will naturally, subconsciously filter out anyone who do not meet this minimum criteria. Now, realize it or not, when we have a certain set minimum criteria in our heart, not just something that you put in a list, but oh, this is the minimum criteria for what I want to achieve in life, right? Anything that do not meet that will be filtered out naturally and subconsciously, right? You will not be attracted to have that person to be your life partner. So for the longest of time, I have always thought that Muslim in general would have the minimum criteria of the candidate for the partner to be Muslim. But then when I asked the juniors, I realized that that's not the case. I was shocked because I thought that whoever have ambition that in this life as a Muslim, I want to achieve this in this life. This is not talking about those who have da'wah or Islamic mission in their life. Just Muslim that want to fulfill their obligation for the Sharia at the minimum level, right? So I would always thought that it would be difficult if you have a life partner that is not also want to comply with that, right? So hence that will become the minimum criteria. But when I asked the juniors, would you be attracted to you fall in love with someone that is not Muslim? They said, yeah, probably. So, oh really? So what is your minimum? Because everyone who will have it a minimum, I would think, I would assume, right? So for most of them, apparently the minimum is, as long, this is for guys, right? As long they are women, not men, right? So when I say, oh, what if they are attractive but men? They say, oh, what? No, right? So as long it is a woman, you can actually fall in love. So I was shocked at that for the first time, and I was more shocked that someone that even that is not the minimum criteria. They said, perhaps if really attractive, really? So as long as what? If it's a dog or cat, oh, they said no, how? So as long as a human being, I don't know what to say with that. But my assumption is, for those who really think about, I'm a Muslim, I want to have this kind of life, etc. Normally, a Muslim, no, okay, not just a Muslim. For those who want to have a life as an obedient Muslim, I would think the minimum criteria should be Muslim that pray 5 times a day, fast, etc., cover their aurah, etc., right? The minimum required Sharia. I would think that should be the minimum for all Muslim. I cannot imagine for those who actually, on one hand, says, I want to build a life that complies with Allah's commandments, and then they can actually consider those who don't pray 5 times a day, etc., as their life partner. Because what kind of life and challenges would you put yourself into if that is your path? Now, if someone who watched this without watching the previous video and says that, in the Sharia it is allowed to have, Ahlul Kitab, etc., I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about halal and haram or what is permissible. I'm talking about being strategic, making strategic decision to fulfill what you have as ambition in your life. There are many permissible ways to do it, but some will put a monumental challenge on yourself to get to where you want to be before you die. Some will be more strategic. So I'm talking about that, right? I'm not talking about, those are not permissible. I'm not talking about fiqh here. I'm talking about being strategic to achieve what we want in this life. We have only one chance. We should be strategic with major decision like this, including finding a life partner. Going back to why I think this should be as early as possible, because I've seen many that is in the high school or even in the university life, that is where being attracted to the opposite gender at the highest or the peak of existence, I would say. So if they have at least a minimum criteria, they would never or not consciously or subconsciously fall in love with a wrong candidate. At least whoever they fall in love with would still be a good candidate, at least, right? So it will filter out those who will not be helpful for them, you know, throughout the life and hereafter, inshallah. So as a conclusion, set your minimum criteria, really understand why that is your minimum criteria, understand what is, you know, can be compromised, what cannot be compromised, and hopefully you can do this as early as possible, even if at the earliest beginning your benchmark is not fully developed as I was back then, but at least it is not how to say, it will be enough to filter out anyone that is not helpful in, you know, achieving what you want to achieve in this life, right? So that will be helpful to begin with, right? So yeah, with that, I hope this is beneficial. So how to actually find the candidate, etc., that will be the upcoming videos, inshallah. Thank you for watching. See you next time.